Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. And it is my pleasure to introduce today's guest, Ben Grise. Hi, Ben.
Hi.
So Ben is a successful entrepreneur, and he also a client. We work together on processes, process improvement, etc. But working with Ben, I really learned to appreciate a lot about why he's a successful entrepreneur. And that's why I wanted to interview you, Ben, because you have so many traits that are so good for our listeners to listen about how you do things and how you approach the business and what makes you so successful. So first of all, we should actually talk about what is your business. So your business is Invest with Ben, right? And
investwithben.com and benbuysindiehouses.com.
Cool. So you're in Indiana, obviously.
Indianapolis.
Yeah,
and we market to homeowners or landlords around Indianapolis, and we buy distressed properties or properties off market, and then we either resell them, rent out the houses, or owner finance them.
Great. And tell us a little bit about your story. You have a great story of how you got to where you're at. So tell us the history and how you got there.
Yeah, before I got into real estate, I was traveling at working as a EMR consultant. So I was traveling to hospitals, teaching nurses, doctors, clinicians how to chart on the medical records, and had just gotten engaged and knew that I was going to be married soon and wanting to start a family. And, I had said, I don't want to be traveling when I have a family. And so I knew I needed to figure out something that would enable me to get off the road and stay closer to home. And then I discovered real estate investing, started learning all that I could about real estate investing, started applying what I was learning, quit my job, and then started scaling the business from there, hiring people. And it's just grown year after year since then. That was about 2012. So it's 2021 now. So it started with just me, and now there's 9 of us, and we're trying to actually hire 2 more people right now for 2022. So it's just snowballed from 2012 to now.
Pretty amazing. Absolutely. And, it's that common denominator that I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs, what you said in terms of, well, obviously you made a decision, you wanted to make a change in your life, right? You realized that the way you were living is not going to be sustainable for your family, for your future family. And, but it's learning, right? You stumbled across real estate, and then you decided to learn all about it. And that is a key ingredient that I hear from a lot of people that I interview. It's that learning. It's that get your hand of every single information that you can find. I mean, obviously consult with experts, find out, learn from successful people that have done it and apply what you learn. And I thought that's spot on in terms of like getting started. Yeah. So you got started, probably there were a few bumps on the road to success, but now you have the team together. What would be an advice to a young Ben? Let's say you in 2012 meeting with yourself 10 years ago. What advice would you give yourself?
I think I had some limiting beliefs as to what was possible with the growth of the business. And so, I think I would have moved faster in growing and scaling and hiring and recruiting and just implementing. And, I think that it's been like the past 3 or 4 years where I've really spent time and money on creating systems, processes, and delegating to other people. Because in the very beginning, for quite a while, it was just me trying to do everything. And, I had this limiting belief in my head that I was the only one that could do everything. So I think, if my mindset would have switched faster, I'd even be further along than I am today.
Right. That's also something in common with a lot of entrepreneurs, right? I mean, and I can totally relate to it. Like we feel like we can do everything better, or maybe there are things that we don't know, but we think we do. But even those things that we can do better, it's not, it's basically our time should be spent in doing some income producing activities and not necessarily those things that we quote unquote do better and we can delegate. So I've definitely seen you. Yeah.
There's a new motto recently that I've been trying to live by as it relates to my business is progress over perfection. So making progress and getting something done, having 80% of the results rather than trying to get 100% everything perfect. It just, you can't do that. It's not realistic trying to do everything perfectly. And when you delegate a system or a process, you can't expect your team to execute everything perfectly, but just focus on all of the progress that you're making, and just use, if mistakes are made, just learn from them, those mistakes. Don't expect your team to be perfect, and you'll make quick progress that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So your team is growing, and I know you are looking for more people, as you said. What are some of what do you feel is your best traits as a leader in terms of leading the group and keeping them cohesive and keeping them moving forward despite anything that is happening in the environment?
I think my best traits are holding people accountable, and measuring, creating deliverables that are measurable, because they say like what gets measured gets improved. So, each team member has very specific set of deliverables, and the entire job role or the department's success, the person's success, and their performance is evaluated based on those deliverables that can be measured. And so, I've been told by, even team members that I'm very task oriented, and not to say that I don't have a vision or I can't be strategic, which I can, but I'm great at holding the whole team accountable to whatever our deliverables are as an organization, that can be measured. And then that trickles down into each individual has their deliverables that they're accountable to that affect the entire organization and the team.
Beautiful. Absolutely. That's a key to success. That's a key right there on how to do that. So how do you hold them accountable? Like, do you have any advice for the entrepreneurs that are listening to us right now and that's something that they're striving to do? What are some of the methods that you have in order to hold them accountable?
Well, I mean, you have to have measurable deliverables. And so, for example, my sales manager, we have to sell a lot of properties, right? Mm-hmm. And so, each property, there are repeatable things, tasks, right? Like I said, very task oriented. There are each property we sell, there are certain tasks that have to be completed every time. So, okay, let's create a process or a procedure around what tasks need to be completed at this part of the procedure. And then so one of the out of the 4 deliverables for my sales manager is 100% SweetProcess completion of his assigned checklist. And so every 3 weeks, him and I meet and we go over, okay, how many properties did you sold? What was the percentage of checklists that got completed, right? So that's a measurable deliverable. Did 100% of those procedures or checklists get completed, and we can measure that. So
absolutely.
And if it didn't get completed, why? What's the restrainer? Do we need to fix the procedure? Do we need, measuring each? I have what I call goal setting and review meetings every 3 weeks with the team, and we're going over those measurable deliverables, and we're measuring whether or not things got completed, and if not, well, what was the restrainer? If they did get completed, what was the driver? Is something broken? If you routinely see, hey, we're not meeting this deliverable, well, what is restraining us, and let's fix it. So
that's great. So, you mentioned SweetProcess. That's actually how we met. The owner of SweetProcess, Owen, actually introduced us because I was doing a podcast with them, and I use SweetProcess with a lot of my clients, and you were reaching out to find a process consultant that can help you systematize your business and document the processes and procedures. And you reached out to me, and we started a conversation, and then we started working together, and we actually documented the core processes for your business on the operations side and the sales side and all the procedures. And we use the tool SweetProcess in order to do that. That's what you were mentioning, that basically SweetProcess is a software where you can enter all those checklists. So you measure those checklists with SweetProcess. So,
and you held me accountable. So, which was important, is having that accountability. We spent several hours every week one-on-one together, and I remember I was like, oh gosh, we have this meeting coming up and it's going to take 2 hours. But it was very, very valuable. And I don't think without, having that accountability, it would have gotten done, Yeah. Or it wouldn't have gotten done the way it should have gotten done, to the level that we were able to get it done at. And it held me accountable. And now we have 70 some procedures or more documented in SweetProcess. My entire team has access to SweetProcess. People I've hired since have used the procedures you and I created to train people underneath them. Every new procedure or process or policy that we've created since goes into SweetProcess. So it's been very valuable for our company.
That's great. Yeah. So let's talk about, the process of how we actually created those processes and procedures, because I know that a lot of people ask themselves, that's what I encounter anyway, when I start working, when I interview a new client or I talk to business owners, like, how do I get started and how do I find the time? Because I think they run into the same situation as you were explaining in terms of, how am I going to allocate 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours a week to actually work on it? So, the first thing that we did was to look at the overall big picture of your company, right? We identified the different workflows in the company.
Yeah, I think what we did, we identified, I would call it, each department of the company, mm-hmm. right? So, everything for us starts with a lead. So we created a process, we created a flow chart of the lead management. And then from lead management, it goes into what we refer to, as acquisitions, what a lot of organizations would refer to as sales, right?
Right.
And then we created procedures around the acquisition department. And then from acquisitions, it moves into our disposition and transaction department. And we created procedures around So we started with like the 10,000 foot view, and then we narrowed it down, to the ground with very detailed, this is the task that needs to happen. So
that's right.
We started with the departments, down to the procedures within each department, down to the tasks that make up the procedures in each department, or the steps of each procedure. So
that's right. So we started with the big picture when we basically drove it in terms of like going into the details on how to execute, but we didn't also go into too many details because you had already using a CRM that had the tasks there, right? That pushes one task to another. So we stopped at the point where we can actually train somebody and direct them to the CRM to complete the tasks. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because I've heard questions about, I have a CRM that has all the tasks there. Why do I need to document my procedures, right? So the answer to them, because you've done it both, you have a CRM that had the tasks already there in terms of like triggering the next task, but we still created the procedures in SweetProcess in order to train the team, in order to create the uniformity, the consistency, etc. Anything else that you want to add about how you use the difference between a CRM, a specific CRM to manage your pipeline, and using a tool, a process documentation tool like SweetProcess?
I would say that the process and the procedure, especially for somebody new, will give the proper context as to what it is, what the end goal is, and all of the steps that happen along the way, rather than just, a CRM is like, just pops up a task, and it's, like it may just be put a lockbox on the house, right? For us, for example, like put the lockbox on the house, or, and I think the processes and procedures give you like the overall view of your organization and what has to happen, what all procedures make up, the revenue generating activities inside the business, and even the operational activities. And you just can't see that inside of a CRM. CRM is just, for me, is just a tool to efficiently manage communication about our customers and with our customers.
That's right. And it also can help manage tasks internally between your group members, your team members.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot has changed since we worked together. And so if you don't have those processes or procedures built, then if a process or a procedure changes, it may be a lot harder to create a new one from scratch, rather than just go back and just change the couple steps that changed. So
that's right.
So
yeah, it gives you the power to, it actually gives you the power to change. It gives you the power to, because we worked together, it was about probably a year or 2 years ago, we finished documenting, and now you took it and you're running with it and implementing it. But it gives you the ability to change it yourself. You don't need, it's because the foundation is still there. It's there. You can do it yourself. You can revise and review it. So if a step changes, you change it right there, and the entire team gets notified.
Yeah.
Good. Now, in terms of,
there are just some things that cannot be documented inside a CRM. Like, if you have accounts payable or processing payroll, like, procedure, that's not something, I suppose you could put it in a CRM, but like, that's not, to me, like, that's not what a CRM is for. Is not for documenting processes and procedures.
True.
It's a very, very different tool.
It is. It's a different tool. I look at it as, the CRM or we call it the CRM, but it can also be a client management software of sorts. Like, let's say if you're a lawyer, you will have a practice management, or if you are a dentist, you will have a practice management, or a CPA will have their own system, or even in construction, you will have a system where you will do your estimates, or you will follow up on sales. That will be in terms of a CRM, but there are different systems out there, but this is a process documentation system. And that's where you can go into explanations. The CRM is more task oriented. Okay, do this, do that. And to your point, Ben, it's really, when we work together, we made sure that when we document a procedure, we actually explain the why behind each step, right? So if there are changes to this step, you remember the why that step was there to begin with. So you don't just erase it or somebody else changes it without giving it proper thought and see how it aligns with the rest of the sequence, right?
Yeah. I actually am in the process of changing CRMs right now. So, but that doesn't mean that I'm losing all of my processes and procedures, right? I still have my processes and procedures because they're in SweetProcess. And now I just have to switch the processes and procedures to reflect our new CRM.
Correct. And that's easy to do.
Yes.
Good. And one of the things that we did also, we used a lot of visuals, like a lot of screenshots, of the different software that you use, but also videos, and you are big on videos, and you're really good at explaining things via videos, and you were willing to record those videos and have those explanations. And when we just put it right there in SweetProcess. So what are some of your thoughts about the importance of using videos as opposed to written communication? And when would you recommend to use each one of those methods?
I think using videos is just so much more efficient. And it's especially useful. If part of the procedure involves some sort of point and click software. Especially useful for that. So rather than like capturing screenshots and then saving them and then adding screenshots, nowadays with all of the screen capture software that's out there, and it's very affordable and it's very, very easy to use, and it's very efficient. It's like 10 or 15 years ago, it seems like everybody used to it's like a technical writer writing out procedures, and there would be like screenshots and bold this word and click here. And now I can just, what maybe would have taken 2 hours to write out a technical procedure, you can capture it in 8 or 9 minutes. Now, if there's somebody on your team that, you can ask a team member who knows the procedure and just say, hey, take a video of what you do and create a procedure out of it. And it saves, your team a lot of time, so they can, rather than spending hours documenting a procedure, they can create, a 6 or 7 minute video and put it on SweetProcess and use that as a procedure. It's
Absolutely.
Just way more efficient, and not to mention it. It's, in my mind, it's way more detailed because everything you're doing can be seen on video, and you can speak to what you're doing. Whereas if you try to write something out, you may have missed something. You may have missed an important detail that you may not have communicated by writing it out. But if you do it on video, they can see it. So.
Absolutely. And we also created an onboarding procedure for you. And one of the things that we recorded, onboarding of a new employee, and one of the things that we recorded is your vision of the company, a welcome video to the company, because you're not always available on the first day exactly at 9 a.m. or whenever they come in to actually, to welcome them. You might be there welcoming them, but maybe you're not there. Maybe you're on vacation. Maybe you're on a golf tournament. Maybe you're doing something else, right? So that aspect of being able to communicate every single time to a new employee the same message is very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that can also be done with that. Great. So, we walked through how to write those processes and create those processes. And you already mentioned about implementing it, because that's the most important thing. You can write it and it can be beautifully written, but then if you don't use it, there is no point in why doing it, right? So you already gave us a little bit of advice of how you implement it by all. And the main thing is that you have people actually track that all the checklists of that procedure that you have in the software and SweetProcess is actually 100% done. Any other advice on how do you make SweetProcess and the procedures in SweetProcess into part of your culture?
Well, if somebody, as an owner or a manager, or, if an employee comes to you and asks you how to do something, then your first response would be, search this in SweetProcess and encourage them to try to do it on their own. And if they can't do it, then the procedure is broken and it needs to be fixed. So it just starts with, okay, this is in SweetProcess. Like Adi, if you came to me and you're like, how do we send out text message marketing notifications to all of your buyers on your buyers list? And I would say, oh, well, it's in SweetProcess. Go ahead and do the procedure. And if you have trouble with it, if something's not working or doesn't make sense, let me know. Then oh, I need to fix that procedure. And so I think it's just, you have to make a conscious effort to get those procedures and processes into whatever software you're using to document your systems and processes. But then you need to hold the team and yourself accountable. And then when changes are needing to be made, you need to hold the team or yourself accountable to making those changes. Otherwise, if you don't make the changes and you don't use it, then it's not going to get used.
That is so true. And like anything else, it's the mindset of the owner, right? I mean, you're very big on mindset. You can have the mindset of this is not going to work, or we don't need to use it, or you can have the mindset of like, yeah, we're going to implement it. We're going to hold everybody accountable. We're going to use it. So once you have it, you have to have that mindset. So this is really the bridge between documentation of the processes and creating them to the follow by all and implementation, is that when you bridge over, you have to have that mindset that you are going to do that. You're going to have it part of your culture, and you're going to use it in order to train your employees, in order to hold them accountable, to manage them, and then it becomes part of the group.
Yeah. And it's any opportunity that you have to delegate something that is a repeatable process, or that that there's a decent chance that, like even hiring and recruiting, right? Like this isn't for our business, we're not constantly hiring, but I know it's just a matter of time before we need to hire another acquisition manager, for example. So anything that that is going to be a repeatable procedure in your business, whether it's repeatable daily, weekly, monthly, or even once or twice a year, just use that as an opportunity, if you don't have that procedure documented, to document it, or delegate somebody on your team who has experience with that procedure to document it. And they may get somewhat annoyed, right? Because they already know how to do it. Right. They're like, well, why do I need to document this? I already know how to do it. Well, your answer can be, well, you may be managing somebody underneath you that needs to know how to do it. And you're going to want this when that time comes. Or when you're on vacation, another team member is going to have to take over this procedure, and you don't want to be bothered on vacation by them asking you how to do something. If it's in SweetProcess, if it's a documented procedure, then the person can just execute the procedure while you're on vacation. So I just try to use, and I know my team probably does get annoyed by me because I'm like, put it in SweetProcess, put it in SweetProcess, put it in SweetProcess. So they get slightly annoyed, but you have to show them that there's value in doing it.
For sure. And they get over it, right? I mean, at some point, the annoyance goes away. And when they see the results and they see that how it gets them to be more productive, more efficient, etc.
Yeah.
Ben, it's been amazing to have you on this podcast. And thank you for sharing your experience and how you use processes and procedures in order to grow your business and continue to scale. So if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you, or to look at your website, or to find out more about what you do?
Yeah, I would say visit Ben Buys Indy. That's INDY. That's a common abbreviation for Indianapolis, but Ben Buys IndyHouses.com. Can learn more about what we do, or investwithben.com. And depending on, customer or client, those are our two different brands. And visit those websites, and it give you a lot of information about our business.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.